Good evening, everybody. Thank you again for coming. Thank you for coming back. That's all. To get you here once is easy. To get you to come back is harder. So it's lovely to see you back again, particularly with a 2-week gap as well. And next time we're going to a Tuesday. Sue will.
I'll remind everyone.
Yeah. Again, thank you, Sue, for arranging it and organising. Okay. So we said that what we try and do in each session is start off with an inspirational story about the power of Tehillim. And I hope I've managed to find one for this week as well. This story a true story took place on Erev Sukkot in Yerushalayim. And Reuven is in a supermarket in Yerushalayim and he is busily buying. The place is packed, very busy. Everyone's doing their Erev Yontif shopping and they're stocking up. And he is at the checkout with a huge amount of shopping.
Joanna. Hello.
So Reuven is standing at the checkout.
Oh.
Sorry, you haven't missed anything. We're just talking about the two stories. We're starting with the story. Erev Sukkot, Reuven he's gone shopping. He's been sent shopping by his wife, and he's got a lot of shopping. And he's at the checkouts, and they're ringing up all his stuff. And there's a long queue behind him. And while stuff is being scanned, he keeps going out of the queue and going to get more things. It's always that person, right? One goes get something else, goes on. Eventually, and this is in Israel, right? This is Yerushalayim Erev Yom. So if you can imagine what it's like, in the supermarket, there are two things that don't work in Israel. There are queues to start with, and people's patience in those queues. So you can imagine how people were feeling with this person, right? He is holding everybody up, taking them. Eventually, Shimon gets fed up with this. The guy behind him gets fed up with this and has a go at him. He says, "You're being so selfish. It's Erev Yom Tov. Everyone's in a hurry, and you keep cutting out the queue and going to get more stuff, more stuff." Reuven is really upset by that. Really upset by that. And someone else in the queue amazingly says this is always ready to get involved, right? So they say to Shimon, "You shouldn't have said that to him. You should apologise." So Shimon apologises to Reuven and says, "You know what? I'm really really sorry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay for your groceries." And he pays for his groceries, right? $600 worth of groceries. Reuven leaves the shop. He's going to go to his car. And he's packing up his car, and he's literally crying. He's crying. Shimon comes out and sees him crying, goes up to him and says to him, "Why are you still crying?" He said, "I apologise to you. Okay, I'm really sorry. Did I even pay for your groceries? Why are you still crying?" And Reuven says to him, "You don't understand. I'm not crying because I'm upset. I'm crying out of joy. You see, we haven't been able to go shopping for a while. And my wife said to me, you go shopping, and myself and the children will stay at home, and we'll sit here and we'll say Tehillim. And whatever happens, happens. And you came along and you paid for my groceries." And he says, "If you don't believe me, I'm going to phone up my wife and tell me." So he phones up his wife. His wife says to him, "What's going on? We're still saying Tehillim here." And he tells us exactly what happens. And when people hear about this story, they say, "Well, let's find out who this Shimon is, because he can pay for our groceries as well." Which just shows you the amazing power of Tehillim. Okay, so let's with that in mind, let's look at a little bit more about Tehillim, more of the inside story. Last time we looked at why it was that King David is accredited with the writing of the majority, the bulk of the Tehillim we have, even though we said there were some other authors. In general, we say it is King David who wrote them. So that was really a summary of last week, why it was King David. And as Henry pointed out, that when he became anointed as the king, at that point he had the Ruach HaKodesh, he received that divine inspiration, which presumably enabled him also to be able to articulate some of the many emotions, feelings, and situations that people find themselves in such a powerful way. I thought we'd do a little bit more background on David HaMelech, and then look at perhaps one of the most famous of his psalms. You can look ahead if you want to just see it. It's Psalm 121. Okay, for obvious reasons, we'll look at that this evening. And try and understand, I think it was also one of the things we wanted to do, is try and understand why, two questions. Firstly, why there are certain psalms that we use on certain occasions, and what is it about those psalms that make them so appropriate for those occasions. Again, hopefully, by looking at the psalm itself, we'll try and discern that this evening. So a bit more of a background on David HaMelech. So according to, if you look in Sefer Shmuel, book 1, there are two books of Shmuel Aleph. David was the youngest son of Jesse, the man of Bethlehem, served as a shepherd for his father before beginning his career as an aide at the court of Shaul, Israel's first king. The Tanakh doesn't name his mother, interestingly, but the Talmud identifies her as Nitzevet. Interesting, no one really calls their daughters Nitzevet. It's a beautiful name, a daughter of a man named Adael.
What does it mean?
Nitzevet means like successful, like eternal success. Yeah. A daughter of a name man Adael, and the book of Ruth claims him as the great grandson of Rus, the Moabitess, by Boaz, and that's the story we're familiar with. When Israel came into conflict with the Philistines, David's brothers went to fight for King Shaul. Young David would travel back and forth to the camp to bring his brothers food and supplies. We see again a caring and nurturing side to his nature. According to Shmuel Aleph, chapter 17, Goliath challenged Shaul for 40 days to send out a man to fight him. No one would face this warrior until David at that time, armed only with a sling and stones, volunteered. He hit the giant in the forehead and the stone and killed him. The famous story of David and Goliath. He continued to distinguish himself as a warrior in the ongoing battles against the Philistines, and his resultant popularity aroused Shaul's jealousy. Fearing that people would make David king, Shaul plotted to have him killed or to kill him. With the help of his loyal friend Jonathan, Shaul's eldest son, ironically, David fled into southern Judah, where, with great sagacity and foresight, he began to lay the foundations of his career. Now, as an outlaw with a price on his head, David led the life of a Robin Hood on the desert frontier of the tribal plain in Judah. Okay.
So I just think, did you have Friar Tuck with him?
Well, who knows? Yeah.
Merry men.
Didn't they have red hair as well? Yeah. He became the leader and organizer of a group of other outlaws and refugees who progressively ingratiated themselves with the local population by protecting them from other bandits, or in the case that they had been raided, by pursuing the raiders and restoring their possessions that they had taken from them. Although the boy David was anointed by the prophet Shmuel as a future king of Israel, as we see in chapter 16 of Shmuel Aleph, his actions in exile helped to ensure that he would be invited to become king as the true successor of Shaul after Shaul and Jonathan were slain in battle against the Philistines on Mount Gilboa. The exploits of David and the events of his monarchy are related in Shmuel Bet, the second book of Samuel. After mourning the death of Shaul and executing an Amalekite who claimed to have killed the former king, David began to consolidate his position as a successor to Shaul. He was proclaimed king of Judah in Hebron, while Ishbosheth, Shaul's eldest surviving son, reigned in northern Israel. There were two kingdoms at that time, and a long war of attrition developed between the two houses. Ishbosheth's position became exceedingly insecure following the death of his general Avner, and he was eventually beheaded by his own courtiers, whom David in turn executed for murdering the last ruler of the house of Shaul. Yeah, this the crown has nothing on this, right? This is really, intrigue and yeah.
Yeah, that's the way,
in the royal
the way things were in those
Yeah,
days.
exactly. Yeah. You were successful if you survived. Right?
Yes.
That was the first rule of success.
Darwinism.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, survival of the fittest. And yet we know, interestingly, that David HaMelech actually himself didn't have that physical prowess. He wasn't. Remember, we saw last week, he wasn't the obvious choice when Shmuel comes to find who God was going to appoint as the next king. David HaMelech was like the last choice. He was the the runt of the litter, right? The little schnit, right? And yet we see obviously he was able to use his brain much more than his brawn.
Can I ask if Shaul knew that David HaMelech was going to be crowned because he'd been chosen, why did he fight it so much?
Well, I think because he didn't want to get. It's like the Queen abdicating, right? She knew that Charles is eventually going to become king, right? But she wants to carry on serving, right? So Shaul wanted to maintain his position as king. Right. So even though David HaMelech was destined to become the king, and perhaps was pre-anointed, Shaul wanted to hold on to it as long as possible. And all the time that David HaMelech was becoming more popular and successful, the likelihood is, people say, "Well, what's Shaul doing? Why are we? What's it called that now? The public person. What was that called? The civil list? Yeah. Why are we showing allegiance to Shaul when he's not doing anything for us? David HaMelech is doing all the work, right? So I think that was the fear. There was a lot of insecurity. All the kings were always insecure, right? You never knew who was going to turn against them, right? And clearly, if there's a rising star, that's a definite reason to be worried.
I always wonder how you could just give the death penalty for someone. He beheaded him, so he killed them.
Yeah.
But isn't that murder?
Well, the king.
The king is above.
The king has those what they call the royal powers. The royal powers. Yeah.
The king wrote the law.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
the king had to also make. The king of Israel had to have Sefer Torah. Right? He always had to have one with him all times because he was also bound by Torah law. we're going to see that there are things in David HaMelech's life which he had to accept. He didn't do them quite right. Yeah. It was often revolving around wives.
Yes.
Yes.
So his wife
Yes.
involved.
Yes.
Several.
Right, where were we up to? David made a covenant. Yes, that's where we're up to. Yeah, David made a covenant with the elders of the northern Israel, and then was anointed as king over all of Israel. So he managed to consolidate and bring back together all of the whole two kingdoms. He next conquered the Canaanite stronghold of Jerusalem, where he made the capital of the new united kingdom. So that sounds weird when you say it like that. United Kingdom.
Yeah.
The latter 2/3 of the book of Shmuel Beis contains the account of the reign of David from Jerusalem. That's what we know. Everyone's visited Jerusalem. We know you've got David's city. You've got the Tower of David. Yeah, so it's very much was his city. After establishing Jerusalem as his capital, he defeated the Philistines so thoroughly that they were never again a serious threat to the Israelite security, and he annexed the coastal region. Yeah, he went on to establish an empire which stretched from Egypt in the south to the Lebanon in the north, and from the Mediterranean Sea in the west to the Arabian Desert in the east. He thus controlled the crossroads of the great empires of the ancient Near East. His second act of political astuteness was to bring the sacred Ark of the Covenant, the supreme symbol of the Israelite religion, to Jerusalem. Although David HaMelech was unable to build the temple himself because he'd been involved in a war, which wouldn't seem appropriate that a man of war should be involved in building a house of God where that's meant to create peace in the world. But with the Ark in Jerusalem, the city became both the political and the religious cult center of his kingdom, United Kingdom. Okay, so that's a little bit more background of obviously David HaMelech's rise to fame in the political and I suppose in the geopolitical arena. But let's now move back into his religious activities. And I said the best way of doing it really is to look at the Psalms. And we want to understand why particularly are those who become more popular than others, and why is it some are chosen, which ones are chosen to be said at certain particular times. So we know, for example, Psalm 121, unfortunately we have been saying it for the last over 150 days now, but any time the Jewish people find themselves in a situation of danger, both physical and spiritual, we could say, Psalm 121 is one of the go-tos. There are others, obviously. Another time we'll see some of those. But let's focus on 121 for a moment, because I think it's really, really fascinating. Its words are familiar to us, but let's read through it again to familiarize ourselves with it. So, Shir Ma'alos Esa'enai El Harim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. Shir Ma'alos. Remember, last time we talked about the different types of openings to the Psalms. We'll say that this one for a moment is a song of ascents. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. May ayin yavo Ezri, a rhetorical question, from where will my help come from? And he answers the question, Ezri me'im Hashem, osei shamayim va'aretz. The help will obviously come from God. My help will come from God, the one who made heaven and earth. Al yitzena mod raglecha, al yanum shomerecha. He will not allow your foot to slip, nor will al shomer. The other word shomer, shomrecha, nor will your shomer, your guardian, will he slumber. The shomer Yisrael, the guardian of the Jewish people, neither sleeps nor slumbers or sleeps or slumbers. Yes, Hashem shomerecha, Hashem silecha ad yad yaminecha. Hashem, God is your guard. God is your shadow at your right hand. Fascinating idea, which Hashem will see what that means. Yom HaShemesh lo yakecha. By day the sun will not strike you. V'yorech balayla, nor the moon by night. Hashem yishmorecha mikol ra. Hashem will protect you from all evil. Yishmor es nafshecha. He will guard your soul. Hashem yishmor seitecha uvoecha me'ata v'ad olam. Hashem will protect you. You're going in and you're coming out, now and forever. Okay. Even just a cursory read of it, it's quite obvious, right? Why we choose it, right? If you want reassurance, firstly, to know where do we look for our help, we look to God. Yeah. Why do we look to God? Because God is the Shomei Yisrael. Yeah, we actually say it in our tefillot every day. Yeah, Shomei Yisrael La'ad. We say Hashem is the eternal guardian of the Jewish people. Okay, presumably words borrowed from this psalm. Okay, so there's firstly the understanding of why we use it when the Jewish people are face existential danger. But let's look a little bit deeper. So let's look at some of the classic commentaries on this psalm. So firstly, we go with Rashi. Rashi tells us a song of ascents. What does this mean? Shir la ma'alos, a song of ascents. So the simple meaning is that when the Levites began to ascend the steps in the temple, they recited this song. Although this song is not written first, there is no chronological sequence. Okay, so this was not the first song he wrote, but the whole book of Psalms, as we mentioned earlier, is not written in any chronological order anyway. But this happens to be the one that they used in the temple when they were ascending the steps to the temple, and that's what the Levium used to sing. So that's the first thing why it's called Shir Amos on the basic. Remember, Rashi just gives you the basic understanding of it. Says the Ibn Ezra. Again, apologies, there weren't any English translations of this, but I will translate it. V'zenema al Yisrael shahu b'matzov masok oi al b'nei gulosenu. This psalm, says Ibn Ezra straight out, was said in relation to the Jewish people who were suffering difficulties. So that's why it was written. David Melech wrote it specifically with this in mind. And secondly, or for those who were in exile. So again, he foresaw, David Melech himself foresaw a time when the Jewish people would suffer, and or a time when they would be in Galut, they would be in exile. And then, so that's straight out Ibn Ezra says. And the second line of Ibn Ezra, Esa, so he says, I will lift up my eyes to the mountains. Says Ibn Ezra, Minha kol shehu b'matzor lasis einav. What is this idea of lifting up your eyes to the mountains? He says it's a normal way of people. People who are in distress, they look upwards. Yes? What do people say? Even people who don't even believe in God and have got no religion or whatsoever, what will they say in a difficult situation? Oh my God, right? All of a sudden they're believers. What they say, there's no such thing as an atheist in is it rabbit hole, is it? Yeah? Not, huh? Something like that. Yeah. It's something like that. Yeah, but when someone's in a situation, yeah, they will call on anyone, right? You know, if God can help me, right? Yeah, God help me. That's what we say, right? So that is the natural thing. People look upwards. Why? Yeah. Help. Yes?
When did Ibn Ezra live?
Ibn Ezra was medieval times. Yeah. I purposely not. I was thinking about this. I was in two minds whether to do this. Whether I was going to give little biographies of each of the commentaries. I've chosen not to. We can, if you want another session, do that. For me, it doesn't necessarily add as much to what we're saying. So I try not to, but I'm happy to do it if anyone wants to do that. So he says, so the normal way is people look up when they're in danger. Ulai yavo ozrim lo laharchik ha'oyev. They're looking up why? In hope that perhaps help will come to them in order to push off the enemy. So we're looking into the distance in order to distance the enemy. So that's, again, it gives us a clue into why particularly this. Okay, happy with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Says the Al-Sheikh in source number 3. He asks the obvious question. Shir lema'alois. Now we're familiar with shir hama'alois, yeah, after we finish eating. Yeah. Yes? So what's shir lema'alois? So says the Al-Sheikh, shir lema'alois es aynai v'chulei, roi l'sim leiv al omru kan lema'alos belamad v'lo hama'alos behei. We have to understand, he says, we have to think about, to contemplate for a moment, why here we start with the word lema'alos with a lamad, and not hama'alos with a hey. K'b'chol shah hamizmorim. This is the only one, and I haven't checked, but we'll take Al-Sheikh's word for it. This is the only one out of 150 that is shir lema'alos and not shir hama'alos. So you have to understand why. Okay, good question? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amnam, so we can say, Yidabe el divrei hashira b'shvil hamalos sheyisbarach mala es ha'adam madrega al madrega zu l'mala mizu. So he says we can say that this shira, he calls it a song here, beautiful idea, this chapter of Tehillim, its words, are on account of the fact that God himself elevates a person, madrega, from one level to another level, and mala, there's another word for a level. So another from one height to another height, right? So it's not Shir Hamos, it's not song of the ascents, but a song to the ascents, meaning to the one who causes a person to ascend. And therefore, why particularly would we say this at this point? Why would we be employing this terminology and this psalm in the circumstances we said when the Jewish people were in danger?
We're at the depths.
Right. We're calling out, oh, yes, yeah, that's another one actually. That's 130, but yes, yeah. I mean, my Kim Krasi, yeah, I call from the depths, I call out to you, right? But yes, and that's why those two are connected. 121 and 130 are, they go together, right?
I just mean that we're crying out to help us,
yes, lift us up.
Lift us out of this pit.
Lift us up, exactly. We're looking upwards, we're looking to the mountains, right? Yeah, Sinai El Harim, we're looking upwards to the mountains, obviously beyond, and again we're going to see there's an allusion there to the mountain of Har Sinai, right? We're alluding to the fact that God appears on the mountain, but we're appealing to that aspect of, we at the moment feel what's known as like Shafal Ruach, we are lowly because we are under attack, we are threatened, we're feeling weak, we're asking God, the God who lifts up people, to lift us up. So that's why particularly it's Shir Lemalos. On the third line, Lefi hadragos hachanas ha'adam lefihem yeh ola b'malos kashe yavoy b'siyata d'shmaya. And he says almost there's a connection between how much a person is prepared to cry out to God, to how much God would be willing to elevate them. So when we and anyone who's be following the series I've been doing on Emun and Bitachon about faith and trust in God will know that the more we place our trust in God, the more God reciprocates that trust. The more we open up the channels of God's providence to us. It's midah k'neged midah. It's measure for measure. The more we place our trust in God, the more God repays that trust, so to speak. Right? And that's what we're saying here. The more we're willing to speak out to Hashem, the more Hashem will help us. And this is the reason why, according in the understanding of the commentators, that the Jewish people when they were in exile would say this mizmor, this psalm. And therefore, it's incumbent upon everybody. Everybody should have the intent. Each individual, not only as a collective do we cry out to God in difficult times of national difficulty, but each individual has to also take to heart through the pain they feel in exile. What should it trigger them? Lahabit Elokim, to look to God. Yes, and then in some way, I think the Al Sheikh is saying here is, and theologically this is a difficult one, but we could just talk about it just for a moment. That in some way, sometimes sorrows, difficulties are there as a trigger for us to turn to God. Yeah, when things are going right, we think, Kol Chivot Simyadi, the Torah talks about it. Yeah, in Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu warns us that when you're settled in the land and everything's going right, human nature is, aren't I clever? Aren't we clever? Yes, we did this all ourselves. No one helped us, right? The great story of the and it's part of human nature. But the person who's on the way to an important meeting, right? And he's driving and can't find anywhere to park, right? He's driving, and he's getting desperate. It's getting later, and he calls, God, please help me find somewhere to park. Help me, and I'll do anything you want. And all of a sudden, the space comes available. He says, oh God, don't worry about it. I found a space anyway. I found a space myself. Yeah. When anything's going all right, we don't need God, do we? We don't think about God's helping us, right? But when we really need God, that's when we really need it. And sometimes, unfortunately, it takes sorrows, it takes difficulties for us to realize that we need God. And therefore, we should take it to heart that there's reasons for everything. Again, we've got to be really careful theologically to say, oh, this is happening because of this, right? No one should ever do that, particularly on a personal level. Someone's going through difficult times for Rahman al-Islam. No one should ever say to them, you know why? Because God wants you to pray. He wants you to be a better person. I don't think it's going to help them. Right? It's not the best method of counselling, right? But we can just say on a national level, we can say that the fate of the Jewish people is wrapped up in our recognition that we're only successful as we are when we're connected to God, right? And to each other. And therefore, sometimes these national difficulties come along us in order to remind us of that. And therefore, onto the penultimate line. So a person should take it to heart that these difficulties are there that we should look towards God. But Omro ki Moshia ein biltoi. And we should say, there's no one else to save us except for God. We can't rely on anybody else.
No.
How prescient is that? Yeah? Yeah? There's no one else we can rely on. Not even the UN. Right?
Definitely
Sorry,
not
political.
Especially, yeah.
Vayiting leiv lashuv eidav yisbarach. And we basically turn to God. V'hu ki yomah ha'ish ha'yisraeli hinei esai enai el ha'arim heim ha'avos me'an yavo ki kava tama zuchus avos. And he says that David HaMelech here was in some way calling upon the Harim. What's this? I'm looking to the mountains. The mountains, he says Al-Sheikh, it's almost something in couch language he's saying. He's talking about Avos, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, and Rachel, and the foremothers. They are the mountains, right? They are these giants. These are spiritual giants upon whose merit we piggyback. So we look to them. So we're saying even if we, both individually and nationally, don't have the merit to deserve God's help, we look towards the mountains. We say, and we do it all the time, right? We start off with Nida. Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, right? We're always calling on what's known as Zchut Avot, the merit of our forefathers. And this, says the Al-Sheikh, is perhaps what David HaMelech was also referring to when he says, Esai enei el ha'arim, I lift up my eyes to the mountains, Me'ayin yavo ezri, where's my help going to come from? Help us now. We're calling out. Again, we have to be really careful. We never pray to intermediaries. Right, and also, there's a custom to go and pray at the graves of Sadiqim, right? But we don't pray to the Sadiqim. We pray to God that in the merit of the Sadiqim who are buried in front of us, we should be helped. Because we may not have the merit, but they might have the merit. Okay, does that make sense? Cool. Okay, that's the Al-Sheikh. Happy to move on. The Chochmah Anach says in source number 4, Esai enei el ha'arim. It says, Perush Harav Hagadol, Merav Yisrael Binyamin Tetzal. I don't know who that is. Shakavana Esai enei el ha'arim ha-Sinai Shnitna Torah. So, I think as I mentioned to you, perhaps another way of looking at it is the mountain we're referring to. When we're saying I lift up my eyes to the mountain, the mountains, one of those mountains is Har Sinai, where God gave the Torah. Shnitna Torah. Ha-Sion al ha'avodeh Me'ayin yavo ezri, the mountain, Hatzion, the mountain upon which my help will come from. Zecharav beis hamikdash lo yisa avoda v'hatorah halo mzahi, because even though the temple was destroyed, and therefore we no longer have the ability to approach God in that way through the bringing of korbanot. Yeah, and remember the word korban is the word lahakriv, to draw close. By giving us something that's special, important to us, to God, so to speak, we are able to get closer to God. Without that ability, all we have is Torah. So we refer, therefore, to the mountain upon which the Torah is given. Just for a second word on the third line. Ezri me'em Hashem, my help comes from God. Saloma, giminis chasadim, shu im Hashem. When we say my help comes from God, we're talking about the kindness God shows to us, that God has with the people. Siv, as it says, ki am Hashem hachesed, ki im Hashem hachesed, because with God is the kindness. Again, what we mean by that is chesed. We have two things in Judaism, right? We have tzedakah, we have chesed. Yeah. Tzedakah is what's strictly required of us. As for the word tzedek, it's justice, it's din, it's right. It's the right thing to do. Chesed is, by definition, going beyond what is strictly necessary of you. Yes, there's a mitzvah of chesed, of course there is, but chesed, by definition, means doing things beyond what is strictly required. And why do you do that? Not because you're required to do it, because you want to do it. You're motivated to do it because you want to help, right? Similarly, when we ask God to help us, in what mode are we asking Him? Do it because it's the right thing to do, because we're deserving of it, or do it out of your chesed, out of your kindness for us. It has to be the latter, because the amount of kindness that God does for us on a constant basis is not something any of us can ever be fully deserving of. Yeah. Again, let's do the analogy of a parent and a child, right? What a parent does for their children goes way beyond perhaps what the child deserves. Often they don't deserve, right? Just can I have some water, do you mind? Sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Why? Because that's what parents do, right?
Yeah.
That's because of the affection that a parent has for their child. Now, the child, thank you. That's my tea. The child will often reciprocate, hopefully, but probably never to the extent that the parent will. But they will do probably as much as they're required to do. Yeah, and that's why fascinating. Now, I know we're going off the topic here, but it's always quite fascinating. There is no mitzvah in the Torah. There's no requirement in the Torah for a parent to love or respect their child. Is there? No.
Only the other way around.
Only the other way around. Why?
Because the parent loves their child automatically.
Because it's one of the Ten Commandments.
Right. So, a parent, the Torah only requires to do things, only instructs us to do things that we wouldn't do naturally. Yeah. So we wouldn't think of ourselves to eat matzah on Pesach, right? We wouldn't actually think of taking a lulav and etrog and shaking it in all directions, would we? Yes, unless we were told to do it, right? Yeah. And sometimes we're still wondering why we do it. Right? And that's a whole other share in itself. But everything we're told in the Torah is because we wouldn't necessarily initially naturally think to do it or not do it, right? Not wearing mixtures of wool and linen. We could sit around for years and never come up with that one, right? Yeah. Who would ever think of that one? Oh, I've got a great idea. Let's say you can't wear wool and linen together. Brilliant. What are we going to tell them? Oh, we'll just tell them it's a rule without a reason, right? Yeah. Genius, right? Okay, so there are plenty of things that we wouldn't necessarily discern on ourselves, and therefore we have to be told. A child wouldn't necessarily discern that they have to respect their parents. So they have to be told to do so. A parent doesn't need to be told to love and protect and look after their child because it comes naturally, right?
Not always.
Okay, in general terms. What were you saying? Not to love the child?
Well, I just think in real life it's not always like that.
Not always. Okay.
No.
Okay.
There are abusive parents.
Yeah.
Right.
Abusive parents.
There
Just
are natural.
thinking safeguarding issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But generally speaking,
but that's what it is. It's unnatural. It's not
unnatural.
what we would
Yeah,
naturally
yeah.
expect.
Yeah, that's not normal. That's not normal, is it?
Yeah.
No, it's not normal.
Yeah.
You can't understand it.
Yeah.
But it does.
And also it's possible to love a child but not so like the child.
Absolutely.
Okay. Where would we get from there? I don't know. Yes. So again, we refer to God as Avinu Shebashamayim, right? He's our Father in heaven, right? He relates to us as a parent relates to a child, yes, which means unconditionally doing things beyond what's strictly necessary to do. He does it out of kindness for us. So when we're appealing to God's, I shouldn't say better nature. That's heretical. But when we're appealing to God to help us, when we may not necessarily be deserving of it, we're appealing to God in terms of chesed, right? So that's what he's saying here. Middle of the third line. Because with God it is kindness. Because even if we desist from Torah and from serving God, there is still God's kindness. Ad kan divrei harav haniskalus. That's the words of the rabbi he quoted. And he goes on, V'ef shalom kasas b'signon aches. There's perhaps another way of looking at it. Ki yadua ki mi shada'atoi shafela alav mala alav kasuv ke'elu ha'ikriv kol ha'kavonos kulam. He says, and we know that if even a person who is of a very lowly spirit, so very very humble, very humility, or has is negative, not in a so great place, he can bring all the offerings there are in the world. Amachazal, and yet they don't necessarily have the same effect as keeping just something from the Torah. It was given to us as a gift. And again, there's a phrase, isn't there? Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? The Torah was, we say, it was a matana, yes? He gave us, right? He chose us, or we chose him, whichever way you want to look at it, and he gave us his Torah. Yeah, so what's the worst thing you can do when someone gives you a gift? Just throw it in their face, right? Just ignore it. Just not do anything with it, right? So God says, and we see that often the prophets will say that and we're not doing this, but if we were looking through Tanakh, you'll see a number of the prophets warn the Jewish people. God's not interested in all the bulls and the rams and the pigeons you bring, right? All the offerings. What does really God want? He wants the heart, right? Yeah, the Gemara says, Hashem wants our heart, right? That you can bring all the offerings in the world, but if it's not sincere, It's meaningless. God doesn't need a bull, right? I don't think God's short of any shawarma, right? But God would very much love us to look after, to treasure the Torah He gave us, because that's the gift He gave us, and that's really what He's saying here. Moshe goes, Gabi Beis Hillel. That's what it says in relation to Beis Hillel. Sinai el Harim, Har Sinai. That's when we said, when we're talking about I lift up my eyes to the heaven, I'm talking I lift up my eyes to Mount Sinai. For Har Sion, and Har Sion, where the temple stood, is now the service in the temple has been annulled. Torah and even the Torah, our connection to it has been limited. And these are the two pillars upon which the world stands, right? Hillel HaZaken said the world stands on three things, yes? Torah, Avoda, Gemilas Chasadim, right? When you haven't got Torah or Avoda, you've still got Gemilas Chasadim. Yes? So although not ideal, you've still got one, at least you've got one pillar, something to hold on to. And that's what we're appealing to. That's what it says. Me'ayin can be read two ways. Me'ayin can also mean from where, as we said, from where will come my help, or me'ain. You can read it as me'ain. You change the nekudos, change the vowel slightly. Me'ain means from nowhere, apart from somewhere. Meaning there's only one place where my help can come from. There's nowhere else. It's like a double negative. There's nowhere else. That's one way. There's nowhere else my help can come from. Meaning there's only one place it can come from. Meaning it's come from God. Right. Anav be'emes yavo Ezri. And when I turn my eyes to God in truth, then my help will come. David to makriv kol korbanos, and then it's like I've offered all the offerings. And as if I treating the service and the Torah was given to me like a gift. And I concentrate on its truth. Torah Ezri me'im Hashem, and the Torah is the help that I get from Hashem. Shu Gemilas Chasadim, which is His kindness. V'zehu me'im Hashem, it means that's what it means when it says it comes from God. B'tabeshu im Hashem, the kindness comes from God. Just as the verse we said before, Ki im Hashem ha'chesed, Kamosh Peres Harav, and this Kabbalah Ma'amad Shalashon Kana, as we've already said. Okay, so the Chochmah Anak is adding there another idea about even if all we have is all we can do is appeal to God's kindness, then that's what we're doing, and that's really what we're doing here. That even if we don't have the merit, even if the merit of our ancestors is also not enough, because we're in such a low state, that's not going to be enough for us, then all we can appeal to is God's kindness. Yeah? Okay, let's turn over. Says the Malbim, Shir Malod, again another one of the classic commentaries. Husad al hashkachas Hashem hapratios. This psalm is, and particularly these first two words, Shir Malod, a song to the one who causes us to ascend, is founded on the concept of hashkacha pratis, God's divine providence. Yeah, the fact that God not only created the world, but has a constant concern and interest in it, and is involved in everything that happens within it. That is a fundamental of our faith, that God didn't just create the world and then abandoned us. He is constantly involved in what's going on. And then it's hachofes ala sadikim, which is a chuppah, which is surrounds the righteous. Esa enai leharim. Yisai ki kasher haya b'tzara higia lo teshur pitom milmala mirashe harare ad. We're here, this Shehamalos, in those two words, David HaMelech is encapsulating a fundamental principle of faith, which is, even when we are in the most difficult of situations, and when it appears to be completely hopeless, that beyond any reasonable expectation we would survive, we look towards the heavens, because nothing's beyond God's abilities. Right? Yeah, the God, and look at these words again on the second line. Higioloi teshua pitom immediate salvation can come to us, mimala, from above, mirashe harari ad, even from the highest of mountains. Yeah? God created the mountains, he can do anything he likes. V'unose einav el harim, shemisham ba'aloi ha'ezeh, liros me'ayin yivo'ezri. And therefore, we raise our eyes up to the heaven, up to the mountains, because from there will come the help for us to see from where the help comes from. Then we will see. Then we'll be in no doubt. When we see God saving us in a situation where we look beyond redemption, then we'll know that's where it came from. And that's perhaps easy why, if you go back, look again, the words are, I said at the beginning, it's like a rhetorical question. Where will my help come from? Ezri mi Hashem. My help will come from Hashem. There's no great mystery there. It's right. You ask the question, he answers it straight away, which is it's like a duh, right? It's obvious, right? Where else is it going to come from? Yeah. From where will the help come from? And we'll see that it doesn't come from over the mountains. Rak, and then this is now the second verse. Rak Ezri ba me'im Hashem osei shamayim va'aretz. Rather, it doesn't come from some faraway land. I'm not waiting to hear the galloping horses coming across the mountains, right? I remember, like, my dad used to love watching that, the cowboy films, right? Yeah, you can hear the noise of the, all that noise going on, right? Yeah, and the clopping of the hoofs, right? Yeah, we're not looking towards. Oh, I can hear the echo of it coming through the valley, right? That's not where it's coming from. It's coming from on top of the mountain, right? From the one who, as you can see, Osei Shamayim Va'aretz. Again, why is David HaMelech stating the obvious? We know God created heaven and earth. Why state it here? It says, right, so in the middle of the first line of the second paragraph, Osei HaTeva. What does that mean? Who created heaven and earth? He created the world, right? Teva is nature. Mashu Lamala Min HaTeva. And yet he is above nature. The one who created nature, God, is above nature, is outside nature, right? Shehagas hateva miachas laose haaretz amanihigo al pi hashamayim shu marachos. So we're saying that the conduct of nature, the one who's conducting nature, orchestrating it, is the one who created it, right? Because he's the only one who's got the power over it, right? So he's saying two things. He's saying, why does it say Ose Shamayim Va'aretz, heaven and earth? We're saying that God not only has power over the natural world that he created, but he also has power over the supernatural world, because by definition, he's supernatural. Right? He's outside all of this. And he controls it because he's above all of it. And he says here, says, even if, this is a fascinating idea, he says, even if the help that comes appears to be natural, so even if I find myself in a really difficult situation, and yes, those horses do come across through the valley and save us, you've got to know that wasn't, a coincidence. Right? I found the parking space myself, right? God engineered it. Yes? Sometimes in a natural way, sometimes in a supernatural way. And it's actually interesting, we're just learning, every day we're learning halakha in the mornings and evenings. We're just learning halakha about there's a bracha to make. If you happen to visit a place where a miracle happens for the Jewish people, there's a bracha to make. We say that we thank God for having performed a miracle for our forefathers in this place. Things like the crossing of the Red Sea, the crossing of the Jordan, right? And there's a whole discussion about it has to be somewhere where the nace is nicker, where it's obvious, where you can see what happened, right? And some say you can only make the bracha when you can see it. Others say no, even when you can't see it, you can still make the bracha. The point they're making is that sometimes God performs miracles which are, by definition, miraculous, meaning they are supernatural, beyond the normal limits of the world. And sometimes, you're in a dangerous situation and you're saved from it, but it was in a natural way. Okay, that's what David Melech is talking about here. In both situations, we have to recognize that it all comes from God. Okay, and it can only come from God because only God is above nature and above the spiritual world as well. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Are we now getting a flavour of why this is such a powerful choice for when we find ourselves in difficult situations? Yeah. Okay, a couple more sources. Oh, someone else. This is in English, right? Would someone like to read source number 6? Midrash.
Oh, I will.
Thanks.
A song of ascents. I lift my eyes to the mountains, etc. David said, a song of ascents that raises us up to a level from which we will never again descend to the subjugation of the kingdom of Esau. As it is said, and saviors shall go up to Mount Zion to judge the mountains of Esau. The people of Israel say to God, we will sing to you a song about that level to which you raised us up from the kingdom. Therefore it is said, I lift my eyes to the mountains. What are the mountains? On the day when God comes to judgment and Israel looks to their forefathers who will speak in their favour, there will be no father who can save his son, and no man who can save his brother from that calamity. At that moment they will lift their eyes to their Father in heaven and say, for you are our Father, for Abraham did not know us. God will say to them, you know who helps you make heaven and earth, let not your foot slip. What is meant by let not your foot slip? When everyone else is slipping into Gehenna, you will not be among them. As it is said, the steps of the righteous are guarded by God. And it is written, blessed are God, O nations. Psalm 66. What are you blessing God for? Our soul waits for God. He is our help and our shield. Psalm 33:20. Behold, he neither slumbers nor sleeps. Psalm 121:4.
Oh, bingo.
Yeah. Is there sleep in heaven? Heaven forbid. Thus the verse says, I saw a dream and it made me afraid. Daniel 4:5. And it is written, according to the decree of the watchman, Daniel, from here we learn that there is no sleep in heaven. Let not your foot sleep refers to the troubles that will come upon Israel in this world. The Lord may cause such troubles, but the righteous must not lose faith.
Okay. What is the Midrash saying? It was in English, right?
Yeah.
Not
There's a lot
easy.
in there.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
Yeah.
Let's try and unpack it a little bit. So the first thing is, David said a song of ascents that raises us up to a level from which we will never again descend to the subjugation of the kingdoms of Esau. As it is said, and saviors shall come to Mount Zion to judge the mountains of Esau. So again, the reference to mountains, high Seir, yeah. We talk about it I can't say that word, can I? In a few weeks' time, we'll mention it in the Haggadah. Can I say that word? Yeah. Sorry. That we said that God gave a certain mountain to a certain person, right? Yes, Har Seir to Esau, right? That doesn't belong to us. Yeah. But Esau is the perennial enemy of the Jewish people, right? So from time immemorial, it started off as brotherly fighting, and it became always it was going to be Esau is Edom, right? It's Rome, yeah. And there's the whole idea that when Jerusalem is in ascendancy, Rome is descends, and the other way around as well. Yeah, so there's an eternal struggle between what we could probably say the West and the East, I suppose. Yeah. So again, we're referring to that mountain. Yeah. In order for us to continue to be successful against that in that fight, we turn to God. I think that's basically that's what it's saying. That's the first bit. And then that bit about sort of at the end of days, talking a little bit about when there comes a time when we need the ultimate redemption. So we can use this psalm that David HaMelech had in mind for times when throughout Jewish history, when it wouldn't need to be history for him, but the Jewish future, where he foresaw that the Jewish people would need redemption, and the final redemption is the time also when we're going to need divine assistance. Yeah, so that's also what we're talking about here. That's when God comes to judge the whole world, right? Again, something we talk about on Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, there's an idea that there come point in time when all the world will be judged, and if we're worthy, then Mashiach will come. Yeah, we'll need divine assistance for them. The Zchut Avot at that point, it may not be enough. We will have to. The merit of our ancestors may not necessarily be enough at that point. Therefore, we'll need God. And this idea of then. No sleep, the idea of sleep. What was he trying to say there?
There's no sleep
in heaven. Hashem never sleeps.
Hashem sleeps?
No, he's never sleeps.
No, never sleeps. Right, right.
He never
Yeah.
sleeps, and
But does that mean
as
we?
part of that, he's always watching over us.
Yeah, he never sleeps. Yeah.
And therefore, what's your attitude be? And it says, that's really at the end. What should our attitude be when we are in difficult situations? Do we think, oh, God's had a day off, right? He's fallen asleep. He's fallen asleep on the job, right? The Jewish people are in danger. Where's God? Where's God?
He must have a reason for all this. We just can't work it out.
Right, and that's why he says right at the end, the righteous must maintain their faith. You need to know God never sleeps. He's watching all the time. He knows what's happening. And when the time is right, and if we're deserving of it, or God decides he's going to employ his kindness on our behalf, then he will save us. But in the meantime, you've got to know, you've got to maintain that faith. Hold on to it. God's what? Really apt for now. Yeah, really apt. Like, we're looking at, well, how's this going to end? When's this going to end? How's this going to end?
Yeah.
If it's going to ever end, where's God? Where's God? And throughout history, people have asked that question. Yeah, I mean,
It's a test.
yeah, but it's a difficult one. I mean, we're not downplaying how difficult this is, but again, David HaMelech here is saying that God is the Shomer Yisrael. He is the guardian of the Jewish people. He neither slumbers nor sleeps. Even if you think he's taking it off the ball, he's falling asleep on the job, you need to know that's not the case. And that's really powerful. Yeah. And then again, really is a cue as to why we're using it when we use it. Yeah? Okay. Another midrash, the Sifrei. Anyone else like to read?
Yeah. Variantly, and this for Judah, Moses prayed for David, saying, before him, Lord of the world, whenever the kings of the house of David, descendants of Judah, are in distress and pray before you, rescue them from it.
Thank you. So, Sifrei here is saying that actually Moshe Rabbeinu imbued this psalm with the power. He actually made a request of God, which is whenever those who descend from David, Yehuda is the tribe of the monarchy. David is a descendant from that tribe. Whenever they pray before you, rescue them from it. Yeah. Okay. And the next is Shalah in source number 8.
Yelkut on Bereshit.
Yasim also al Mizbeach. He placed him on the altar. This is talking about Abraham and Yitzchak, the Akedah.
Describes both Abraham looking after Yitzhak and Yitzhak looking towards heaven. Both were crying. The Yelkut presents the most moving picture of the great quantity of tears which covered Abraham from head to toe. All this in order to implore God to save Yitzhak. Abraham told his son that seeing he had wept so many tears, God has provided a different offering in his place. At that moment, Yitzhak broke out in bitter cries, proclaiming, I raise my eyes towards the mountains, whence will my salvation come? Psalms 121. All this proves that both Avram and Yitzhak had been willing to go through with the sacrifice, but how could they have been described as having served the Lord with joy, as is required?
Let's just do that last part for a moment. It's not our question here, but what is the Shalah saying here? So where do these words originate? I lifted my eyes to the mountains. Where will my help come from? Avram and Yitzchak. So right back. So it perhaps even predates again. Again, we can suggest we're not saying they wrote these words, but they said these words, and therefore David HaMelech was channeling the words that had been used previously, because obviously Avram and Yitzchak are using them at this moment where, and again, go back to what we said about sacrifices before. This is the ultimate personal sacrifice they were both willing to make. Avram to give up his only child, and Yitzchak to give to be the sacrifice. They were both looking towards heaven, yeah, crying. Who knows what those tears were, and that's a whole question. But clearly looking towards heaven for some clarity, maybe, yeah. Not necessarily resistance, but just let me understand what's going on here. Yeah, I think that's a really powerful way to look at it.
I've never heard of him being covered in a great quantity of tears that covered him all over.
Right. And again, maybe the illusion is that we talk about that that prayers don't always penetrate through into heaven, but tears always do, because again they come from deep within us. Right? Words can often just be words. Yes, you can say that again, like you can offer offerings, and it means it's meaningless, right? Because it's just an act. You're going through the motions. Similarly, we can say the words, but it could be words, right? by rote, it could just be that feeling, that kavana. But tears, you can't fake tears. Not even the best actors. Well, maybe some, but yeah, but they come from deep within. Right? That's a real expression. Okay, and then maybe that's also why it says, Esayanai, I lift up my eyes. God, tears are streaming coming out of their eyes. Okay, a few more sources. Ibn Ezra. Okay, back to me, I suppose. Ezri. So now that was all on the first verse, by the way. Yes, you realise that? Yes? Yeah. We're not going through every single verse, trust me. Okay, we're just going to a couple more verses. Okay, so Ezri, my help, my assistance. But derech nevuah, either by way of prophecy or al derech tikva, ein li sorech le'ezros adam. Ibn Ezra is saying, when it says my help comes from God, it's either by saying, through prophecy, I know that God will help me, or through hope, I know that I place my bitachon, my trust in God, and I hope He will help me. But for definite, for sure, I'm not relying on any human intervention here. I know that no one else can help me. Ki im le'ezros Hashem levad shu'oseh ha'elyonim va'aretz hashafela. Because it can only come from God. It can come from only God alone, who made the upper worlds and also made the earth below as well. Okay? Only God has it within His power and His gift to be able to save us. Okay, quite obvious. And then, and then it says Hashem must be on the next verse. Let me just check. Ezri miyem Hashem. Hashem. Od mala b'shmiraso. There's another layer, an additional layer to God's shmira, to God's protection. K'muvad Hashem shomerecha mafkiin artseim hu gam kain silecha. So here we're going into that next bit about. Going into the bit about. No, we've skipped. We have skipped. I think we've skipped here. Let me just check. What we did here. Yeah, we're now looking at verse 5. Hashem shomerecha. Hashem is your guardian. Hashem silecha ad yad yaminecha. Hashem is your shadow. How do you translate it here? Is your protection. Yeah, silecha, like a sail, is actually a shadow. Protection, that's what it means. At your right hand. Okay, what does that mean? Your shadow at your right hand, your protection, your shade at your right hand. It says not only does God protect us from the physical dangers that we may face, should sell gam miros to vios shemimios. But also God protects us, is a shade to us from the natural and supernatural things that could happen. And God is incomparable to any other type of guard, protection, who is not always with you. Yeah, when you have other guards with you, they only protect you when they are physically with you. God is always with us. Because God is always to be found at our right hand, until He's literally like a shade on our right hand side. Yeah? And there are others who bring the idea of we'll see in a moment in Kedusha Levi, this idea about like being a shadow, right? Wherever you go, your shadow goes, right? The shadow can't stay at home, right? It's always with you. Yeah.
Only Peter Pan.
Okay. Yeah, and the guy so we don't have time to explore it tonight because we've got more time. But this idea of Yad Yaminecha, your right hand, again, there's a whole idea with the Kabbalistic idea about the right side and the left hand side. Yeah, we always give in halacha, we always give precedence to the right for those who are right-handed. Yes, those who are left-handed, their left hand is like their right hand, but that's a whole other course. But we always give precedence to the right because the right side of God, whatever that means, is synonymous with rachamim, with mercy, with the kindness. Again, which is something we've mentioned up to now. Yes, that God is at our right side. He is through His mercy, He is constantly protecting us. And a couple more sources. The Torah Shemima says, Rabbi Chanina. This is Gemara in Menachos. He quotes, Rabbi Chanina. Come and see how different God is to how people are. Midas basav adam melech yoshe mibifnim ve'im mishamrim osa mibechutz. A human king will sit inside the palace and his guards will wait outside. Yeah. Midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Eino Kain, whereas God is not like that. Avadav Yoshim Bifnim, his servants sit inside. V'hu Mishamrim B'mechutz, and he guards them from outside. Shenem, as it says, Hashem Shomerecha, Hashem is your guard. Hashem Simlecha Al Yad Yaminecha. Hashem will be your shade, your protection at your right hand. Yeah, true strength. Again, normal thinking is who is the powerful person, who is the strong person, the one who's got guards protecting him. Yeah, the king in the palace with the guards outside, he's safe. He's the one. He's powerful, right? Actually, that's a sign of weakness. Rabbi Sachs writes a beautiful idea about walled cities. That the idea of, when the spies were sent to spy out the land of Israel, and they came back and they said the cities are fortified. There's no way we can conquer them. Now, there's two ways of looking at it. What was the mistake? Well, you might think, intuitive, you think, yes, if a city is fortified, it's going to be hard to conquer. It's strong. The other way of looking at it is, counterintuitively, is why do they need to fortify it? Because inherently it's weak. You don't need to fortify something if it's weak. So you don't have to fortify something if it's strong. Yes? Yeah? You fortify something because you know it's weak. It needs to be fortified. A king is inherently weak. He won't be able to fight off his enemies. He needs people to protect him. That's why he's inside and they're outside. God doesn't need anyone to protect him from anyone. And therefore, he protects us. And again, that's a shift in mindset. That's what David Melech is reminding us of here. We place our trust and our hope in the wrong places. We think, we have to have the greatest army, we have to have the greatest protection. Yeah, that's the normal way of thinking about things, to protect ourselves. Actually, the greatest protection is God. And then finally, source number 12. Someone else like to read, please.
Kedushat Levi, Exodus Shalach 30. It is well known that it is God's intention to confer blessings and benefits on his creatures. However, there are times when the benefits remain in the realm of the celestial regions, never reaching its addressees. Whereas on other occasions, these benefits are executed so that they become visible and felt by its recipients. The Baal Shem Tov of blessed memory dwelt on this when he explained the verse, Hashem Tzalach Al Yad Yaminecha. The Lord is your shadow, always on your right. Psalms 121, verse 5. He explained that just as the shadow reflects its owner's movements, so Hashem's dealings with his creatures reflect these creatures' needs. Deeds, thank you.
And needs.
And needs.
If man emulates Hashem's attribute of mercy in dealing with his fellow man, Hashem can be depended upon to deal similarly with that creature also. Talmud Shabbat 151 phrases it thus.
Just go to the English.
Anyone who has shown mercy to the creatures will experience that when called for God to deal mercifully with him. If a man practices the advice of the sages to accept always with good cheer what fate has in store for him, he will find that God will respond to his virtues in kind. This is what the Midrash says on the verse in Psalms 121:5. It follows that when man possesses the faith that God will help him through some major problem that faces him, he can rest assured that God will indeed do so if God feels that this is for the person's benefit. We do not always know what is good for us, said Ed.
Very wide, that Ed.
As long as it's not Ed Miliband.
No. That's what I don't know.
If a person forever worries about where his parnasa livelihood will come from, he is liable to experience that God, acting like a shadow, shares in his worries rather than providing the solution.
Okay. What's the Kedush Levi saying there? Kedush Levi, who that was? That was Reb Levi Yitzchak and Berdichev, the Berdichev Rav. What was the Berdichev Rav saying there? What's this idea of God being our shadow? That's really what he's picking up on.
So he will.
What is a shadow?
He will shadow us.
Yes.
He will follow us.
Yes. In what way?
To a certain extent, if we believe and act as if we believe,
Yep.
he will follow us with the belief.
Yes.
Our belief will cause him to follow us and protect us.
That's right.
Because if we don't, then
The more, basically what he's saying is the more we trust in God, the more God will repay that trust. the more that trust will be, we'll see that we can rely on that trust. Similarly, also he's saying is that we have that part of that we are meant to be, we're meant to imitate Deo, we're meant to be like God, we're meant to be God-like as possible. So if we are merciful to other people, God will be merciful to us. It's midah connected midah, measure for measure. God is our shadow. Yeah. If we are willing to be merciful to other people, then God will be willing to be merciful to people. If we are willing to forgo how someone's upset us, then God will forgive us as well. Yeah. That's all. That's basically what he's saying. That's this idea of shadow. That God is God will protect us to the degree that he shadows us. And that almost throws it back into our court, doesn't it? Again, it's reminding us, we're turning to heaven for help, and then we're saying, we're reminding ourselves, we want God to help us, but actually we need to recognize we need to help ourselves by helping others. It's dependent on us. Yeah? And then finally, the final paragraph, he says, Yadua, Shub'esis Misraim Lahayu Shum Ataruta de la Tata. Again, this is a couple of ideas. There's an idea of Ataruta de la Tata means an awakening from below. There are two things, an awakening from below and an Ataruta de la Eila, an awakening from above. Basically what it means is sometimes what happens is based on whether we have initiated it or whether God has initiated it. Yeah, sometimes we know what we need to do, sometimes we don't, right? Coming out of Egypt, there was no awakening from below. Only on account of God's great love for the Jewish people, that he chose us to be his people, did God feel motivated to take us out of Egypt. It was all God's doing. Yes? V'nimsa shemoshe Rabbeinu haya hashpaus nevosa bezeh, that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to influence this. Aval shah nevim, and see it in his prophecy. Aval shah nevim hayu la'acha matan Torah shehi ataruta de la tata. So, sorry, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to tap into that. Moshe Rabbeinu understood that the Jewish people at the time, as we know in Egypt, had sunk to the 49th level of tumor spiritual impurity. They were almost undeserving of being saved. The only reason they were able to be saved is because God was motivated to save them out of his great love for them. It was a complete act of unconditional love. Again, like a parent can have for a child. A child can do the most terrible things, and yet this parent will still do their laundry or whatever.
Stand by them.
Yeah, you stand by them, right? Do incredible things for them. That's how it was pre-Matan Torah, pre-Sinai. But once we had Sinai, he says, the other Nevi'im understood, and the other prophets understood, that Matan Torah is the penultimate line, Shehi ataruta de la tata, she oskim tameh b'misosav v'torasav. But once the Torah was given to us, the Torah gave us a wonderful opportunity, which is for us to be, for motivation to come from below, from this world. Why? Because we are able to gain merit through our involvement in Torah and mitzvot. Ukafi ma'asehem tovim, and through our good actions, kain garmu lasos rusham lamala, ukamor kain yarda hashefa. We then are able to cause an impression above, which creates a flow of goodness below. So, again, we're reminding ourselves, Hashem ultimately will do things out of his unconditional love for us. But we also have the opportunity of generating those feelings, generating the merit by the way we behave here. So our fate, I think it's a beautiful way, if we're going to end with this, that Shila Malos is telling us that our fate is both in God's hands, but it's also in our hands. So we look to the heavens knowing that ultimately our help can only come from God. We can't rely on anybody else. What we can rely on is ourselves. That we hope and pray for an Ataruta de la Tata, for an Leila, that there's an awakening above. I mean, God hears our cries, our genuine prayers to him, and he will save us. At the same time, we also have the ability to be, that we said that the difficulty situation we find ourselves can be a spur to improve ourselves. And through that, we generate the merit that we need in order for God to help us. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, so it's the adage, heaven helps those who help themselves.
Right, yeah.
So we've got to work towards it and it'll be there.
Right, 100%. Okay, any questions on that? Comments, observations, disagreements? Okay, I hope that's given us a little insight into 121. And please God, for the merit of our saying it, we should see great Yeshuas, we should see great salvation.